My experience of kidney disease is that unfortunately my husband's kidneys failed very early in his life, in his early 50s. And he had to go on dialysis because dialysis is the only solution when your kidneys fail. It filters the blood and it does the work of the kidneys until a suitable transplant comes up. You have to be compatible and you have to be fit to go on a transplant list. But meanwhile, dialysis is the only solution. Douglas eventually had a transplant and it did change our lives, but before the transplant, we had to adjust our lives to dialysis. And then we both worked. We had a very good employer, fortunately. And because you only have 2 days free of your working week, he decided to go on medical grounds. And I was lucky enough to get early retirement, so we could make the most of the days when he was not on dialysis. Well, we tried to plan everything around those 2 days, because the days you're on dialysis, it's very hard for the patient. He comes home very, very tired. And so those 3 days you have to take off your calendar. And everything we did in our lives, we arranged on the days he was not on dialysis. Birthdays, going out for any function was on those 2 days. But remember that dialysis patients also have a lot of food and water intake constraints. So that as well takes the fun out of going out to a restaurant for eating, because you can't eat everything. Also, it stopped our traveling. We used to travel a lot. Now, if we wanted to travel, we had to arrange a dialysis clinic wherever we went, and this, of course, was an added cost. But still, we managed even to go on a cruise with dialysis during when he was on dialysis. We managed to save up, and we did go on a cruise with dialysis. My advice to everybody would be to take great care of the kidneys. Don't underestimate their function. Lead a healthy life and have a healthy diet so that you can take good care of your kidneys and they will last for your lifetime. That is my advice to everybody.
My father is a dialysis patient. His kidneys started to fail probably about 12 years ago, and gradually got worse to the point where now he has such a low kidney function, he's on dialysis. He does dialysis at home and he has his own machine installed, which is quite encouraged in the UK now. That's where they live. It's an NX stage machine and he does dialysis 3 days a week, 4 hours a session. Mum is his support, really. She's his main carer, and he can't travel like he would have to travel, like he could travel before. He would visit us a lot in Gibraltar. That's not so easy now, although he can actually travel with this machine. It's a lot of organising, a lot of equipment's got to be delivered in advance. It's quite expensive to do as well. So it has restricted travel a lot. We don't see them as much as we'd like to. He's adapted really, really well. He looks well, he just doesn't feel well. And if he didn't have dialysis, obviously, he wouldn't be alive. So everybody's just adapted to it. It is a big change. Because he does dialysis at home, she'll help him set up the machine, keep an eye on him, make sure everything's okay. It's nice just to have a second person there to give a hand if anything was to go wrong, because it can. She'll take him snacks throughout. She'll encourage him to do it on days he just doesn't feel like doing it. My father is actually eligible for a transplant. He's got things that go against him in that he's getting older now. The biggest problem is there's not enough kidneys there to be transplanted, and if everybody signed up to organ donation, maybe more people with kidney disease who can be eligible for a kidney could maybe have a complete change of life and have a kidney.
Well, my personal experience is that when I was 52, I started on dialysis, and shortly after, a year or so after, I was lucky enough to receive a transplant. Well, there was some information, but this was times before the internet boom, so to speak, and it wasn't readily available as it is today. And this is why I joined Kidney Care Gibraltar because when you go to the doctor says, oh, don't read too much the internet about it because it conflicts and stuff. And I thought that the best means of attaining information about this and many other things is to have a face-to-face with somebody who has themselves had the disease. I think that is the best source. So there's definitely more information out there today, and especially now that Kidney Care Gibraltar exists. Well, I think it's not something that should be taboo, you know, oh, kidney disease, oh my God, you know. Oh, it should be spoken about in the same way as many other things seem to be taboo too, but in this day and age, slowly but surely, it's starting to be spoken about. How do I think it's the best way to spread it? I think the best way is precisely by speaking word of mouth, but I also think that it is important to direct our efforts into the educational system so that somebody, a child, can learn from a very young age, say first school or whatever, about kidneys, know where they are for starters, you know, make it enjoyable and fun to learn, and they themselves will also by word of mouth take the information home and show mommy or daddy the picture they've drawn or what they've learned on that particular day. Well, when I got diagnosed myself, it was so daunting, you know, I couldn't think anything good about it. And I was somewhat reluctant in a way, you know, to accept it, because it is something which is very difficult to accept. And it's very difficult to accept because it entails many changes in your life. Changes you can predict because you can read about them or whatever, but changes that you don't expect because they come along as your own condition deteriorates. So I think that you should take it very seriously from the beginning, and you should accept what has come your way and to approach it with seriousness in order to prevent, and if you can, to hold back on the deterioration. For obviously there are 5 stages within kidney disease, and once you get to stage 3, then it becomes moderate, then it becomes a lot more serious. And there are lots of people out there, because kidney disease is far more widespread than you would think. It's a pandemic in itself. Oh, my life has changed from life to day. I mean, I could hardly eat anything prior to my kidney transplant because of diet, because of controlling potassium and what have you, and now I can eat almost anything, with the exception of a couple of items which I cannot because of the medication, you know, but I'm fine with that. I enjoy having a good luncheon like everybody else, como Janito que we are.
Well, my father, Dominic, has kidney failure. Now he's had a transplant. He's spent about a year on dialysis, and he generally just kept going downhill and downhill and downhill. He'd take medication all the time. He had to have binders whenever he ate. He had medication in the morning, in the evening, a bit better now, and he'd always complain about it. Sometimes he couldn't get out of bed, all that kind of thing. Bit older, 9, 10-ish. In a way, I kind of tried to forget about it, because after we started dialysis, I knew on this day, and this day, I wouldn't be able to spend that time with him. Generally, I was at school anyway, so it wasn't a terrible problem, and I generally tried to forget about it. There were some things that would remind me, such as him complaining or not waking up on time, that kind of thing. But my solution was forget about it, pretend it doesn't exist, and don't make his life any harder. In a way, I was slightly irritated because of other things going on at the time, and this was just another thing to the list. As time goes on, I think it got a bit better, but originally I was a bit surprised, because I hadn't been told, or I hadn't really seen anything until I was told on that day, where we went to the hospital together, and he explained that I was going to be told something which I probably wouldn't like. And that was when I found out. And he started dialysis 1 or 2 months later. Well, firstly, prevent it. Don't have too much sugar or chocolate or that kind of thing, and try to avoid getting it in the first place. If you know anyone with it, try to be supportive. Try to learn about it, not just kidney disease, but other organs. And if you can, help someone with it. Don't just say, oh, that's a shame. Think about how you can help. And if you can, do help.
Well, I started 24 years ago with a focal and segmental glomerulosclerosis disease, which I was on treatment for about 10 or 15 years, and then I had renal failure and I started dialysis. Since then, I've been 14 years on dialysis, and I'm still on dialysis waiting, hopefully, for a transplant. Well, at first it was a bit of a shock, and it did change my life because I was working as a nurse, a very active person, and family with my daughters, and it really had a lot of depression and a lot of anxiety, but I had to carry on, obviously.
At first, it was a very big shock because obviously, which is not a way of going, they give you hopes that you're never going to end up seeing your mom on dialysis, and you always think that it's going to be an easy ride. It is an easy ride when you have the support, but when you experience it in first person, then it's when you actually feel your life kind of crumbles around you. You try your best to obviously stay positive and give as much as support, but it is a very drastic change from day to night, especially when you're in your teens, so to speak, and you've got a younger sister, which is my case. My sister is 7 years younger. So you always try to shadow the worst experiences and then basically just gang up and be one group together and support. At first, when it all started, I was quite very young. So I turned onto writing diaries. So that was the beginning of my writing adventure. So I was between 8 and 10 when I did my first diary entry. Trying to keep positive and thinking that it's normal when it's not normal. Throughout your teens, things become a bit more difficult trying to cope. It's very emotional in every aspect of the way, whether you try to be positive on your low days, and until you end up finding people who understand you. Sadly, I did have to go through psychiatric treatment, and leading to having to have medication like many other people around the world. And today is just trying to maintain as positive as possible, looking towards the future and hopefully a transplant for my mum.
Well, it has quite a lot because we have been a family that we have done lots of outings, going on holidays, going on meals. My work, I really enjoyed my work. I had to leave my work. I've been very active in housework, doing everything for myself. No, I never needed help from anyone, you know. And now I've been going down and down, and now I'm even worse. That I can't hardly. Hardly walk.
From my personal point of view, it's not only trying to keep healthy, and it's not only just keeping healthy and living a normal life. It's not taking for granted what your body really needs. And when you face something like this, it's not only about you, of how you feel and how you're going to cope with it, but standing side by side with the person who is actually suffering the illness. You can easily drift away because you find it's too much at one point to tolerate. But when you then selfishly look at the other side of the coin, you really have to stand up and just stand by the person who's by you. Be as supportive as you can. Try to do as much as you can. And the main thing is, like we're doing today, raising awareness and together. It's very easy to say, oh yeah, because I suffer from this, I suffer from that. But unfortunately, when there's not enough awareness around, it does become a silent killer. And sadly, you see the person who's suffering deteriorating so much that you have to stand up to it. So it's just take care of yourself. Make sure that you care for every single organ of your body, especially your kidneys. If they're not healthy, you will never be healthy.
That people should realize the meaning of renal failure and other organs, obviously, and they should actually donate I think.
Obviously, every little helps. We have a really good Facebook page, which we're working on a daily basis. It will be getting better. We've got YouTube. As I said, every little helps, so all contributions towards the charity will be amazing. We do have a membership forms on it as well, so we're happy to take anyone on board that wishes to join us. And most important is just a shout out to anybody that wants to help us or can help us. We really want to get a program going for organ donation, only for kidneys, and as well what brings with it. And please don't take your organs to heaven. If you can leave them behind, have that moment in your heart and be a hero for somebody else. Even though it's really hard to try and accept what it is, you have to accept it. You have to move on. You have to be positive and have faith on the system, even though it will let you down. Don't let the fear of losing your loved one win you over. And if you need help, ask for it. Don't stand on your own. There's always people around you that will be willing to help. And most importantly is stand by them. Always stand by them. Whether you're feeling down, they will need you most. Always. So just give them all your love, care and attention. And just try to be strong, live your life to the day, even though it's easier said than done. I know this personally. I myself find it very hard on a daily basis to try and smile. But you have to be positive, and if the transplant doesn't come, the life does carry on. And there is hope. There is a lot of hope. Just stand by each other. That's my message for everyone.